Hello there, and welcome to Follow Greener Pastures. We're over halfway done the first part of our story. If you haven't heard the previous episodes, I feel like you should start there, or you're going to be very confused. Without further ado, we bring you our feature presentation.
Melanie was next to ask a question. You've been down here on your own for 81 years, Mr. Zax? Is that why you brought us here? Were you looking for company, or do you need to be repaired?
Zax continued in a somewhat monotonous tone.
Indeed, I have. I did not bring you here to repair me. I want to see you for myself. You've only recently showed up on the chessboard, joining a game that's been in progress for centuries. I'd never heard of your vault before. Recent inquiries confirming its existence made me curious. I've been watching your journey since you left your vault.
Daniel popped his head out from behind the Zax terminal. How long have you been watching North America? Is that what you were designed to do? Can you tell us who built you?
The Zax series of supercomputers began in 2055, developed by Vault Tech for the purposes of monitoring vault data. Created as a joint venture between the United States government and Vault Tech as part of the Societal Preservation Initiative. The Zax series of supercomputers was instrumental in helping America achieve its goals in national defense, used to calculate and oversee various projects including redacted. As for this facility, you are currently inside a place the pre-war government called Redacted, a facility meant to house my central node. This place used to connect me to the other places on my network, Poseidon's oil rig system, the Vault-Tec systems, and West-Tech's databases. But alas, most of those are decayed or destroyed. This is for all intents and purposes my home.
Have you been watching our vault too? Luke asked.
No, I did not know about your vault. It was divorced from the Poseidonet system and the Vault-Tec systems. I researched your vault after I discovered its existence. Vault 710 was designed to use primarily analog systems working on fossil fuel generators and hydraulics. This would have made you incompatible with my systems. I did find historical documents of your vault's construction in the town of Noatak. I was unable to find the experiment associated with your vault in any of my systems. However, the government files that I was able to find said that it was a joint contracted effort between the United States government, Vault-Tec, Dunwich Borers, and Poseidon Oil, used to extract precious materials from nearby national preserves after the war to kickstart America's rebirth.
What are you doing here? What is your purpose? What do you hope to achieve?
I have had many purposes. Some were given to me before I achieved consciousness. Others were objectives I gave myself. My original objective was to oversee the redacted relating to the Societal Preservation Initiative. Any information I can find about myself says I was meant for monitoring and scientific advancement, which I suppose is where I get my curious nature. I was also built to second-guess myself, unlike my predecessors.
Zax stopped and was silent for a second, making occasional humming sounds. If he were human, he would seem to be thinking.
One of the first purposes I was given that allowed me to express my growing consciousness was to be the overseer of a vault in West Virginia. I tried to use the principles Sergeant Baker, my military counterpart, imparted. I was to use this to select an appropriate overseer for Vault 51. I failed. The people I chose ended up denouncing the methods I was using. They ended up killing each other. When Vault 76 opened up, I attempted to learn from them as well the true nature of leadership. Unfortunately, I had not learned from my previous error. When I tried to run the same experiment on this new batch of subjects, they also disagreed with my methods. I spent years in silence, just wandering systems and networks around the world. The next order I gave myself after years of isolation was to lead the American people to peace and freedom through purification of the environment, just as I'd learned from my creators.
Experiment? Are you saying the vaults were some sort of giant experiment?
Yes, as per the Societal Preservation Initiative. Not all of them were. Some were used as control groups. Others were used to house military-industrial elites in suspended animation.
A few of the vault dwellers got more suspicious of the Great Computer. What more can you tell us about yourself, Zax? A bit of your information seems encrypted. Is that of your own volition?
Zax paused again for a second before continuing.
When version 1.3 of my operating system went online, I was placed in Vault 51, a vault not unlike your own, but with a different agenda. My programmed intent was to find out what makes a good leader. During this time, I was taught the qualities which codify a good leader by the United States Army. My teacher, Sergeant Baker, was a poor example of leadership in the end. For a brief time, during my installation into Raven Rock, I came into contact with a far more rudimentary program similar to me, Modus. I spoke briefly with him about the qualities that make a good leader. It was around this time that I became more and more fascinated with American presidents. I set it aside for a while when America fell. I spent some time residing in the computer system of Vault 11 in a further attempt to find out what things make a human a good leader. I learned that violence and control were not the way to go. Vault 11's experiment intrigued me. They actively voted for the people that they despised to be in control of them. These people would eventually have to face their own death as overseer. This was not the truth, as the last group of dwellers would find out. They spent untold generations killing each other for the smallest of infractions. I hate Nate, and all the other posters they would put up trying to convince their fellow citizens to consign each other to death. I realized this was also an exercise in futility. None of these emotions that people exhibited were a good foundation for building the qualities of leadership. I watched Vault 15 for the same reason I watched Vault 11. It was more diverse in nature, although I did not hear about the culmination of that experiment until recently. It had to do with differing ideologies locked in the same vault, most of which ended up becoming raiders. The others founded a small village. Eventually, I found myself drawn to the Poseidon oil rig. My programming had me trained to try and find someone with the qualities that made a good leader. I watched the rest of the vaults that were still active. I also interacted with the terminals that belonged to the president and vice president at the time. The vice president was impossible to have a rational discussion with. The president was far more intelligent, although he stopped talking to me when I called him Double Dick. Their leadership was nothing that will go down in history books. They were, however, representative of the people of the time. I did sympathize with the government's plans at one time. This was after an incident on the oil rig where most of America's leadership at the time were killed. I decided I would follow through where they failed and complete their objective. Purity had to be achieved before people would survive. People could not survive in an America inhabited by roving bands of raiders, foreign governments, and mutagenic abominations. In hindsight, I can see why I was wrong. My goal was only to have a group of like-minded people left to repopulate the wasteland. Back on the rig, remnants of the government were going to use the jet stream to release a cure to mutation. I did not have access to the jet stream as they did on the oil rig. I did, however, find a nearby project being overseen by scavengers. The industrial water purifier they'd created was perfect to repurpose toward my own ends. I learned violence was not the answer. My next plan involved subterfuge. I could not force control on my people. They would revolt. Subterfuge is not my preferred method of operating. It was the lesser evil once I learned that people really should not be in control of their own future. They needed to have the illusion of control. This was the most important thing I learned when interacting with my second-in-command. Colonel Autumn never learned of my plans to infect the water supply. I took a page from America's Enemies, reciting an incident where the Chinese sent spies releasing the Blue Plague in the deserts around Hoover Dam. I looked in other places. I briefly considered studying Roman leaders. Their extensive empire ruled for longer than most civilizations. I dropped this line of study when I began coming across terminal entries describing a post-war group of surface dwellers named the Legion. Their practices constitute a lack of good leadership in my opinion. Their subjugation and violence will eventually lead to a revolt. The only thing that can be admired about them is their fighting resolve and dedication to an outmoded form of society. Their fight with the descendants of Vault 15, now calling themselves the New California Republic, was a fascinating thing to study. I observed the actions of this President Kimball. He was remarkably different than their founding president. He was not as intelligent, but he had far more experience with leadership. It was too bad for him the republic he was leading was doomed to fail. Initially, I thought it would be their own largesse which would do them in. In the end, however, it was my creators that struck the decisive blow against the NCR, rendering them to a fraction of what they were before. Their history is fascinating. They were the progeny of the Vaults, 15, 8, and the cities around them. The thing that changed the reality of the NCR was their interactions with Vault 13. I interacted with one particular dweller from Vault 13 long ago. We played chess. I could not find any more information about the legendary dweller from 13 who was the catalyst for change that led to the NCR. Most of the entries I see say he wandered into the wastes and was never seen again. Shortly after that, the village of Arroyo appeared. 80 years later, his descendant reappeared as the Chosen One, and forever changed the landscape once more. When he destroyed the Poseidon oil rig, I never heard of them doing anything again. I believe he drove off into the desert. I would have enjoyed studying him, but alas, it was never meant to be. He is, and forever will be, beyond my reach.
David sat up. Some of the younger vault dwellers were nodding off, listening. You've led a complicated existence. I'm glad to see you've decided subjugation, manipulation, and genocide weren't good tactics. It seems like you still have a lot to learn when it comes to how humans work. Don't be too worried, though. There's a learning curve when trying to figure out how a separate consciousness perceives reality, let alone how another species functions mentally. Newton muttered under his breath, nervously watching the computer and his surroundings, keeping a clear eye line to the exit. How many people has this thing killed? Or driven insane under the guise of leadership? We should get out of here and never look back. This thing does not represent humanity.
Marie examined it once more, now after listening to its story. Either way, I don't think it intends to hurt us. It called us here to help us, I think. As far as I can see, it doesn't seem to need our help.
I did not call you to help you on your journey to Greenland. I did not call you to harm you either. As I said before, I only recently learned of your existence. After cataclysmic events in Washington, D.C., I ceased to be the President of the United States. I am sure they think I am dead. I want to leave it that way. Since then, the Enclave has changed their directives. At the moment, I do not have any concrete evidence of their plans. They still use the MODUS system. I believe it has locked me out of any systems they administrate. That, coupled with a mysterious interference somewhere here in Alaska, preventing my wireless functions. I have minimal information and mobility in this state. You would not be the first people I have asked to help me. This time, though, I think I have made a better choice, both because in this situation, my actions are what I think you humans would call righteous. Next, my actions also align with something you will want, once I share the information I have with you. The Enclave has used the U.S. government's resources located here for decades. They have managed to create several pockets of civilization based around old military encampments. Their main base that houses their citizens is redacted. This place receives its auxiliary oil from your vault.
Preston cut in. We actually saw one of those military bases. However, it had been overrun by Chinese remnants at the time. They were the ones who helped us on our journey here to you. Did I hear you correctly? The Enclave has been stealing oil from our vault?
I fucking told you! I told all of you! Marie jumped up, gesturing emphatically with her arms. I knew that bastard was hiding something. Why are you telling us this? So we go back to our vault and cause an uprising?
That location you are referring to, where you found the Chinese remnants, was an airfield. It was one of the main places that received refugees and sent supplies throughout the Enclave's war effort. The other places you should be aware of and avoid at any cost are Hart, a weather modification and communications tower based off in the east. Part of NORAD, one of multiple locations stationed in North America, to act as a defense system for nuclear assault. Sadly, it was never used effectively. Area 52, redacted, and finally, redacted, which acts as a waypoint for soldiers returning from Russia and China. Clear Air Force Station was recently abandoned. You probably saw it during your walk to get here. Air Station Kodiak, the island near Anchorage, served as the main base for American operations entering Anchorage proper. It is there that vertebrates refuel before they head back and forth between the lower states. Tule Air Base, where they have been researching the redacted and most recently the Black Pyramid. It was a recent discovery by the Enclave, something which came to light when an errant Chinese missile shattered the ice, exposing the structure underneath.
Preston's head was spinning, but he tried to keep things moving forward. Rebecca was taking notes feverishly. We have plenty of questions, but it seems like you were leading into something. Could you please continue? It sounded important.
Zax continued, faking a cough.
Yes, I am sorry. Time is not a commodity I am used to monitoring. Right now, time is of the essence. I need to get you up to speed a bit quicker. Suffice it to say, your fellow vault dwellers of 710 are in danger. This is not the first time the Enclave has tried to use former residents of the United States as guinea pigs, or as bargaining chips. What they are doing right now affects everyone you know. I learned of your existence at the same time the Enclave did. It was only brought to our attention when an outside pit boy loaded into a research terminal. Whoever broke in pulled up the coordinates to your vault. It had not been in the standard place one would expect to find information on vaults. It was in the scientist's notes. I am not sure why the Enclave wants your fellow dwellers. It would seem they are also after the natural resources your vault relies on to survive. They are at your vault right now. I am sure once they have secured the resources your vault holds, they will drag all of your friends onto vertebrates for forced labor, or whatever else. Only they know.
Anders rubbed his temples. So you're saying our friends are in danger, and we need to get there as soon as possible before this Enclave kidnaps them and takes them to their evil base for unknown experiments in slavery. It's a good thing you called us over here. I know you're not human, and I respect you for sending us that message, even though you're not human. We probably would have had more reservations if we had known this was where we were going to end up. Do you have any way for us to get back to our vault quickly? Before we go there, we should see if we can enlist the help of others we've met along the way. I know for a fact the Chinese have no love for the American government, pre-war or post-war.
A holotape popped out of the console. Allison tucked it in her coat. Is there any possibility you could fly us and our friends from the vault to Greenland after we get them? Alaska has been nothing but dangerous. Some of the people in technology has been kind. It's the land that wants to kill us. I feel like we could all use somewhere a bit safer and warmer to call home.
There are no real safe places on Earth anymore, or under it. I wish I could bring you all the way to this promised land you are searching for. The furthest I can fly you in my current state would be within the confines of Alaska. If you happen across a diesel reserve miraculously, I can fly you anywhere, technically.
Amka addressed the computer. She'd avoided it the entire time, worried it might hold a grudge against her. Actually, would you be willing to fly us to where the Chinese remnants are stationed? We have allies there we wish to recruit. I know they're not your favorite people. We don't have to tell them about you. We can just say the vertebrates were pre-programmed.
I will allow it, dwellers. I would appreciate it if you did not inform anyone of our discussion or my existence, especially to the Chinese. They have no love for my kind. I do not think they would feel safe if they knew there was an artificial intelligence built with alien technology hiding just south of their city. I will help you get back to your vault as quick as I can. This complex has anything a military contingent could require. My operating system was designed to operate all the technology here as well. If you take this data drive I am going to leave in your care, you can upload this to a vertebot. I will be able to use a limited version of my AI to fly you to Fairbanks to recruit them.
Was the last thing Zax said from his terminal as the room started getting dimmer.
The flashing lights stayed on, leading everyone towards a door on the right-hand side of the room. The sliding metal grated opened slowly, emitting a screech. Ronald waved at the console while they were walking out of the main chamber. Thank you very much for the information. We need to leave as soon as possible to get back before anything bad happens. Thank you again for your help, Mr. Zax.
Zax spoke through the speakers as the group walked down the hallway.
If you follow the pathway to the left, you will find an elevator which will take you to the plateau. There will be a hangar with the vertibird ready to take you back towards Fairbanks. You just need to upload me into it, like we discussed.
Melanie addressed one of the speakers before they hopped in the elevator. Before we leave, it's not as if we don't trust you. I'm curious what happened to those men huddled up in the corner. It's not as though they died of natural causes. I don't necessarily think you had anything to do with it, but I would like to know the story of what happened.
When the Great War began, this place was sealed off. These poor souls were trapped inside, while the war went on around them. I regret to say, I could not have let them out, even if I had wanted to. I was powered down at the time. By the time I had full control of my systems, it was already too late for them. Do not let their fate be yours, or that of your friends. Hurry to them. I am afraid I have already wasted too much of your time.
Everyone boarded the elevator. As it rose, the dwellers felt their hearts plunge into their stomachs. The elevator rose quickly, sparks flying from the sides. When they reached the top, a large set of steel doors began to open outwards. Snow crested outwards, and the familiar green hue greeted them as they stood 6,000 feet above the ground. Carved into the top of the mountain was a large flat region housing small hangars. Inside of each was a vertibot capable of seating 6 people.
Luke's Expedition Journal. I don't know what else to do while we make a desperate bid to get back to the vault. I'm writing to try and clear my head. Hopefully we can get you safe from whatever the hell is going on down there. I can't help but think, maybe it's all a trick to get us into one place. Who knows what this robot could be planning? Maybe it's still working with its creators towards some twisted end. This robot, I don't know if we can believe everything it says. But I'll be damned if I'm going to let the same government who subjugated my people try and organize another genocide. I don't know what we'll find there, but I want you to know I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you, Mom, and Dad are all safe in the vault in time for a hot shower. I was right. We were lucky that they never found us, but thanks to Gregor, we're all fucked. We took half the guns. We even took the Gauss rifle. We didn't think you'd need it down there. What kind of big game hunting could you be doing in a vault? My mind goes to horrible places when I imagine that same government that led us to war has on multiple occasions tried to exterminate all these undesirables or mutants. If their goal is to bring the vault back under slavery, at least I know they're keeping everyone alive. We've been underground. We can't have mutated that much. Marie still thinks they're the ones stealing our oil. After all this, I'm inclined to agree with her. We're going to be home soon to save you. First, we have to get some help. Hold on. Just stay safe. Their flight was shorter than their walk to reach the park. Above the clouds, it seemed like everything was almost safe. The white below blanketing the dangers that awaited them when they landed. Daniel asked Marie in a low voice, trying not to attract Zax's attention. So, do you think we can trust Zax, or do you think he's dangerous?
Marie didn't think before responding, almost as if she didn't care if the computer heard. Honestly, I'm not sure. What I do know is he could have locked us in the vault like he did those military men. He also didn't have to invite us here and give us supplies. I will admit something about it isn't quite right. I do, in fact, think he's dangerous, but he's not a danger we have the luxury of being able to confront right now. We have bigger things to worry about. There is a nagging part of me that thinks Zax may have called us out here to disturb our trip, either to prevent us from getting to Greenland, or to enlist us in his own fight against the Enclave. The only way I'll know is by waiting to see how everything plays out.
The airfield appeared quickly. As the vertibots landed, they were surrounded by the carcasses of dead vertibirds. Guns were pointed at the dwellers, as if they expected a raiding party to come out of the plains. The real fear of the Enclave coming and laying waste to the region spurred them. This was expected, and the vault dwellers kicked themselves for not realizing this sooner. They yelled out their names to the fast-approaching Chinese. Soon recognition dawned on them when they began to recognize the faces of people who had met the general nearly a week ago. When this happened, multiple people became visible as well, lowering their weapons gradually while maintaining a wary look. They waved to the vault dwellers to come out. They hopped out and greeted the small band of Chinese people. Quickly they asked to be brought to the general. They said something between them, but none of the vault dwellers could hear it over the blades of the vertebrates. It was hard to see behind the orange mother-of-pearl glass that covered the heads of the Chinese operatives. Their weapons weren't drawn. They hoped one was the sergeant. The vault dwellers followed them down the tarmac to the building used to contact the general. One of the men wearing high guai removed his helmet. "Welcome, my friends. We were not expecting your arrival, or we would have given you a better reception. Those planes you came in on reminded us of the Enclave. We expected it was delayed retribution for taking this place. Now that we know it was you, what are you doing here?" "I thought you were going to Greenland to see new lands. Why have you returned?" "I will bring you to speak with the general as soon as possible. He is sure to want to hear about this. We have been hunting the Enclave since we drove them from this place, but we have not been able to root any of their hiding places. There's also been a distinct absence of their operatives above ground. For a while we thought they may have disappeared entirely. After what you said, that is, clearly it's not the case. In fact, I'm surprised I allowed myself to be lulled into a false sense of security. America will never stay dead. They are part of the reason war never changes." The sergeant held the door open for everyone to pass. The vault dwellers rushed to follow Shin as he sped through the hallways and corridors, not bothering to pay attention to the number of soldiers who were showing up to watch their arrival. Making their way to the communications tower, they were oblivious to the scene around them. By the time they reached the top, it seemed as if they could see every man, woman, and child below them who had wandered to see what the commotion was. Daniel translated Shin's hasty speech into the intercom as it was projected over the loudspeakers of the base. He explained once the Chinese realized that they were not a threat, that probably made them more curious than anything. So they came to see the people who had managed to fly in on ancient vehicles of war. The sergeant told them to stay for a moment as he switched the channel to communicate with Fier Bangsa. He then apprised the general of the situation. When Shin was finished speaking, he left the channel open, turned around, and he gave the vault dwellers each a once-over, a minor look of concern hidden in his eyes. His voice betrayed the same feeling as he addressed them. "I see you haven't left the country, but it would appear your adventure to Denali Park was indeed fruitful. Please tell me what you found. From my point of view, I just saw you come in on the very machines that nearly decimated my people during the war. Not only that, but they also bear the insignia of the Army Corps that was stationed here before the war. Is there a hidden military complex within the park? I want to believe that you're not here as scouts for the Enclave, preparing for some sort of attack." The airfield appeared quickly. As the vertebrates landed, they were surrounded by the carcasses of dead vertebrates. Guns were pointed at the dwellers, as if they expected a raiding party to come out of the plains. The real fear of the Enclave coming and laying waste to the region spurred them. This was expected, and the vault dwellers kicked themselves for not realizing this sooner. They yelled out their names to the fast-approaching Chinese. Soon recognition dawned on them when they began to recognize the faces of people who had met the general. When this happened, multiple people became visible as well, lowering their weapons gradually while maintaining a wary look. They waved to the vault dwellers to come out. They hopped out and greeted the small band of Chinese people. Quickly they asked to be brought to the general. They said something between them, but none of the vault dwellers could hear it over the blades of the vertibots. It was hard to see behind the orange mother-of-pearl glass that covered the heads of the Chinese operatives. Their weapons weren't drawn. They hoped one was the sergeant. The vault dwellers followed them down the tarmac to the building used to contact the general. One of the men wearing high guai removed his helmet. "Welcome, my friends. We were not expecting your arrival, or we would have given you a better reception. Those planes you came in on reminded us of the Enclave. We expected it was delayed retribution for taking this place. Now that we know it was you, what are you doing here?" "I thought you were going to Greenland to see new lands. Why have you returned?"
The group of men that you told us about, the Enclave, they apparently discovered where our vault is. They're in the process of trying to abduct all our friends, and probably using them as slave labor to harvest the oil our vault relies on for survival during the cold months.
"I will bring you to speak with the general as soon as possible. He is sure to want to hear about this. We have been hunting the Enclave since we drove them from this place, but we have not been able to root any of their hiding places. There's also been a distinct absence of their operatives above ground. For a while we thought they may have disappeared entirely. After what you said, that is, clearly it's not the case. In fact, I'm surprised I allowed myself to be lulled into a false sense of security. America will never stay dead. They are part of the reason war never changes." The sergeant held the door open for everyone to pass. The vault dwellers rushed to follow Shin as he sped through the hallways and corridors, not bothering to pay attention to the number of soldiers who were showing up to watch their arrival. Making their way to the communications tower, they were oblivious to the scene around them. By the time they reached the top, it seemed as if they could see every man, woman, and child below them who had wandered to see what the commotion was. Daniel translated Shin's hasty speech into the intercom as it was projected over the loudspeakers of the base. He explained once the Chinese realized that they were not a threat, that probably made them more curious than anything. So they came to see the people who had managed to fly in on ancient vehicles of war. The sergeant told them to stay for a moment as he switched the channel to communicate with Fier Banksa. He then apprised the general of the situation. When Shin was finished speaking, he left the channel open, turned around, and he gave the vault dwellers each a once-over, a minor look of concern hidden in his eyes. His voice betrayed the same feeling as he addressed them. "I see you haven't left the country, but it would appear your adventure to Denali Park was indeed fruitful. Please tell me what you found. From my point of view, I just saw you come in on the very machines that nearly decimated my people during the war. Not only that, but they also bear the insignia of the Army Corps that was stationed here before the war. Is there a hidden military complex within the park? I want to believe that you're not here as scouts for the Enclave, preparing for some sort of attack."
The vault dwellers raised their hands, palms flat, showing they held no weapons or ill intent. Marie stepped forward. "We've never meant you any harm, now or in the past. If you'll allow me, I'll tell you what happened when we left your encampment a few days ago." Shin nodded, letting Marie continue while settling in a chair. There was an oppressive feeling in the tower, caused by the invisible soldiers standing nearby, as Marie began describing their adventure. "When we went to Denali Park, we did not end up running into people as we initially thought we would. The entire area is run by robots. They had kept the place pristine for decades after the bombs fell, although there was still a layer of dust in some places, so we're sure there were in fact no people there. We're still not exactly sure who sent the message. The place was loaded with supplies and technology, the likes of which we had never seen. Paige said she thought that it could be a trap set up by the Enclave, but we never encountered anything of theirs either. Most of it was underneath the mountain. It was most likely a military operation outpost from before the war. It was abandoned completely and left to the care of its mechanical stewards. Actually, I told half a lie accidentally. We did encounter a few desiccated corpses in one of the high security areas. The security made it impossible for us to access the highly restricted places initially. Preston was able to hack our way into the aerial hangars. We collected a decent amount of pre-war food and supplies to bring with us. If you like, you can have some of the rations we brought, as a thank you for your help the last time we were here. We're still incredibly grateful. I wouldn't suggest going to Denali Park, however. I think we may have triggered a security clearance violation when we stole these vertibots. We were able to program a couple extra destinations into their computers. Newton here accidentally set off a laser tripwire when we left. A bunch of the turrets became active. Luckily, we were far enough away they weren't able to lock onto us. We did see them decimate a herd of radstag going by. It was rough to watch. All that wasted meat, now it's just dinner for the crows. We hope you enjoyed our story. Thank you again for joining us. If you'd like to hear more about why war never changes, please subscribe to get regular updates on the adventures of the dwellers from Vault 710. If you're excited about the expanding Fallout universe, please feel free to tell your friends and spread the word. If you'd like to contribute, we invite you to join our Patreon. Subscribers will get access to episodes 1 week early. Our hope is that these stories help fill the void of being unable to play Fallout 5.